Hey guys. Going into some of my dreams and stuff and sharing them gave me an idea. I've got a whole catalog of dreams that I really hadn't gone into, and I figure maybe I'll go into some of those. They're interesting. Some of them. So, I'll tell you another dream. This one could tie into an attempted humiliation ritual. Alright. In this dream, I'm in my old town, the one that we lived in before we moved here. And one of the kids from my old church, his mom comes to me and asks me if I could take her son, if I could drive him on his date. I guess for some reason he needed like a chauffeur or a companion or whatever, so she picked me to do it. And this lady owned a hair salon off of Highway 21. Now, I agreed, I was like, okay, sure, why not? I realize I'm in the dream at this point, so I'm just going along for the ride. And I go and pick up her son and take him to the restaurant so that he can have his date. And I remember when I'm riding or driving with him and talking to him, and he's talking about what he wants to do. He's like, they keep telling, giving me advice on what I should do when I grow up and yada, yada, yada. And I remember hearing him, and I remember kind of thinking, like, why am I driving this kid around? I don't even really, like him that much. Like, I feel like I'm kind of babysitter. But I was like, I'm just going to keep going. Let's see what this dream's got to show me. And I tell the kid, I say, young man, I know everyone's trying to convince you to think of a career that you got to be into forever right now, but why don't you just focus on something that you just kind of like doing for a little bit until you figure it out? And I was like, you like to work out, and ladies seem to like you, and you like music. I was like, why don't you go be a bouncer? Why don't you go work at a club or something? I was like, you'll get to meet people, probably fit your personality. Again, giving people genuine advice, even though, like, I really don't like, they're not, like, the favorite person on my list. So anyway, we get to the restaurant. I let him out. He goes and sits at the table, and I sit with him, and I recognize his date. She's a girl from the church. 2 people. 2 familiar faces. Well, 3, I guess, total, but 2 on this date. Anyway, they're sitting there talking, and I'm sitting next to him, kind of trying to just kind of do my own thing, not really pay attention. And I notice as I look around the restaurant, everyone seems to be watching us, watching me. And as I'm, casually just kind of looking and trying to not really eavesdrop, I end up hearing some things. I end up hearing somebody go, "Oh, look, he looks like he's the help." Talking about me hanging, being there with him. At that point, I realized, I'm in a precipitated humiliation ritual attempt. That's what this is. I know what I'm going to do. So, I wait a few moments, and the young man that's at the table then starts to kind of do that thing that most of those kids in those clubs do. Start to talk down to you. Start to try to dominate, And I was like, okay, I got something for you. And I say, young man, I've always noticed. Now, there's one thing I got to tell you about this young man. He was a handsome fella, but he always did this thing with his face. He had a twitch. He had like a little twitch, a little tick or something that he would do. He never really brought it up, but I think it was something he was a little self-conscious about. So I said, you know, young man, I've always noticed that thing you do. I see it. That thing you do with your face. What is that thing? And I speak to him as if I'm going to speak straight to his heart. And then all of a sudden, this young man bursts into tears, sobbing. He goes, my grandpa hurt me when I was a little boy. He did something to me and almost collapsed my lung. And I do this now ever since then. As he's sitting at the table sobbing in front of his date, I look at his date, and his date's got her jaw to the floor. I then look around the restaurant. Everybody else is watching with their jaw to the floor. I lean back in my chair, kind of smile. I look at everybody in the restaurant and I say, y'all be quiet now. Master Harper's therapy's in session. And then the dream starts to fade to black. And as it's going out, I hear somebody say in the background, I hope you're charging for that. Now that young man, that wasn't the first time he tried coming in my dreams. He tried coming a couple other times, but he hadn't come since that last one. I gave him a last message on our last encounter. I hadn't seen him again. But guys, when you do the work, when you look in, when you face your demons, master your mind, yeah, you get to the point where you can just lucid dream at will. So, work at it. Hope you have fun with it. Bye.